I'm Chloe, I'm 33 years old, and I thought last Tuesday morning would be just another regular day in my quiet little home office. I work as a programmer for a big tech company. The job pays well better than I ever expected, honestly, and with remote work policies, I get to sit in my own space, coffee in hand, coding away without the stress of traffic or a cubicle. 4 years ago, after years of pinching pennies, I finally bought this house. Signing that mortgage felt like stepping into adulthood on my own terms, and it was the best decision I ever made. The house isn't huge, but it's mine. I decorated every corner, set up a proper office, and even planted some flowers along the walkway. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something permanent. Lately, things have been even better. About a year ago, I met Mason online. He lives a couple states away, but he's one of those rare people who makes the miles disappear with just a phone call. We visit back and forth. Sometimes I drive the 6 hours to see him, sometimes he flies out here. It's been incredible. In fact, I'd been seriously thinking about selling this house, packing up, and moving closer to him. I can work from anywhere, so why not? That morning, I was buried in lines of code when I heard the ping of an email. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something nudged me to check. The message wasn't sent to my work address, or even my regular Gmail. It came to an old account I rarely open anymore. And when I saw the sender, my stomach sank. Mom. Here's the thing, I haven't spoken to my family in 5 years. 5 whole years. And trust me, there's a very good reason. Let me back up. My parents are in their early 60s now, set in their ways, stubborn as stone. Then there's my sister, Emily, 3 years older than me, 36. She's married to Jason, and the two of them have been stumbling from one mess to another for as long as I can remember. 5 years ago, things were still different. Back then, I was saving like crazy. I'd built up more than $120,000 in the bank, money I planned to use as a hefty down payment so I could buy a home without drowning in mortgage payments. I was proud of that number. Every dollar represented skipped vacations, hand-me-down furniture, and working extra hours. At that time, we still had a family ritual, Saturday night dinners at my parents' house. It was simple: Mom's roast chicken, Dad watching sports in the background, Emily talking about whatever new plan she had cooked up. For a while, I looked forward to it. But then came one particular Saturday, the one that cracked everything open. I walked into the house and found Emily and Jason already sitting with my parents, grinning ear to ear like they'd just won the lottery. Mom looked at me with this overly bright smile and said, "Emily's planning to open her own business. We just know she's going to be tremendously successful." I smiled politely, but inside my thoughts were sour. Because this wasn't Emily's first rodeo. She had already launched 2 businesses before. Both crashed and burned spectacularly, leaving my parents to clean up the mess and pay off debts. But if I dared say that out loud, I'd immediately become the bad guy. My parents always took Emily's side. Sure enough, Emily was practically bouncing in her seat. "I've got it all figured out this time," she said, leaning toward me. "Chloe, I have a complete business plan. I only need money for development." Then she and Jason turned their eyes directly on me. Not on Mom. Not on Dad. Me. And in that moment, I realized exactly where this was headed. Emily and Jason just kept staring at me, eyes locked like predators circling in on prey. Finally, I broke the silence. "Why are you both looking at me like that?" That's when Emily's voice softened in that fake sweet way I knew all too well. "Well, Chloe," she said, "I know you're saving for a house, and I also know you've got about $120,000 sitting in your account." My stomach dropped. It felt like someone had just dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. "I'm not investing my house money into your business, Emily," I said flatly. Her entire demeanor shifted. Her voice got defensive, her words spilling out in rapid fire. "This time is different. I've thought everything through. I've got the perfect plan. If you just loan me the money, in 2 years I'll double it. You'll get 240 grand back, easy." I couldn't stop myself. I laughed, not the kind of laugh that's mean, but the kind of laugh that slips out when you hear something so ridiculous you can't even believe it. "Emily, you've already failed at this twice. Maybe it's time to give up on these schemes and get a regular job like the rest of us." Her face turned bright red, her bottom lip quivering. A second later, she bolted from the room, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jason shot me a glare like I'd just kicked a puppy. "You're such an idiot," he spat before storming after her. That left me alone with Mom and Dad. For half a second, I thought maybe they'd finally see reason, maybe they'd admit Emily was reckless and I had a right to protect my savings. But instead, they turned on me with a fury I'll never forget. "You're cruel," Mom snapped. "You're selfish, greedy. How could you do this to your sister?" I sat there stunned. "I'm just telling the truth," I said quietly. "If she tries again, she'll just end up deeper in debt." Mom's voice cracked as she raised it higher. "Emily is more talented than you, Chloe. You're just jealous of her success." That one stung. Success? Emily was broke, twice over, and now begging for my money. But before I could even respond, Dad dropped the hammer. His face was hard, cold. "You give Emily that money, or you're no longer part of this family." I looked at both of them, these people who were supposed to love me without conditions, who were supposed to want what was best for me, and in that moment, I realized they never had. I stood up and said the only words I could, "I'm not giving her my money." "Then get out," Dad growled, "don't ever come back." They kicked me out, me, their own daughter. The next day, I changed my phone number. Blocked them on everything. If they wanted Emily so badly, they could have her. I wasn't going to be their ATM. 1 year later, I bought my house, just like I had planned. The moment I held those keys in my hand, I felt a freedom I can't even describe. For 5 years, I lived without them. And you know what? I didn't miss a thing. Through mutual friends, I heard Emily had managed to get her business off the ground. She bought a nice house, traveled with Jason, posted vacation pictures from the Caribbean. Honestly, I was happy for her. I wouldn't wish failure on anyone, not even her. But I still had zero interest in being part of their world again. That's why, when I saw Mom's name pop up in my inbox after all that time, my hands actually shook as I clicked open the message. "Chloe, we need to see you urgently. This is a matter of life and death. Please come home." For a split second, my anger melted away. Life and death? My first thought was Dad had a heart attack. Or maybe Mom had cancer. As furious as I still was, I'm not heartless. If someone was dying, I had to know. They probably used that old email because they couldn't reach me any other way. I sat there staring at the screen for what felt like hours. Part of me wanted to delete it and pretend I never saw it. But another part whispered, what if this is real? What if they're telling the truth? I finally typed a short reply, "I'll come by this Saturday." Saturday came too quickly. I barely slept the night before, my mind spinning through every possible scenario. At dawn, I got in my car and drove toward my old neighborhood, my stomach twisted in knots. Everything looked smaller than I remembered: the houses, the trees, even the street where I'd learned to ride a bike when I was 8. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, my chest tightened. Parked there already were 2 gleaming cars, Emily's Porsche and Jason's Mercedes. Both brand new, polished to perfection. And right then, I knew whatever this life or death situation was, it wasn't going to be what they'd made it out to be. Emily's Porsche gleamed in the driveway, parked right beside Jason's spotless Mercedes. Both of them looked brand new, probably worth more than the down payment I'd scraped together for my own home. Figures. This wasn't going to be just me and my parents, the whole circus was here. I sat in my car for a full minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe. Whatever this life or death situation was, it clearly involved the entire family. Finally, I pushed the door open, walked up the steps I hadn't climbed in 5 years, and knocked. When Mom opened the door, we just froze. She looked older, worn down, with lines etched deep around her eyes. Her voice shook when she finally whispered, "Chloe. Thank you for coming." I stepped inside and followed her into the living room. There they all were, arranged like some twisted reunion. Dad sat in his recliner, his face grim and unreadable. Emily slumped on the couch beside Jason, her eyes swollen and red from crying. Jason held her hand like a stage prop, looking equally shaken. What struck me most was the contradiction: they all seemed almost relieved to see me, yet terrified at the same time. I stayed standing, arms crossed. "All right, your email said this was life and death. What's going on? Mom sat down, her hands trembling as she wiped at her eyes. It's about Emily, she said, her voice cracking. She's in serious trouble. I looked at my sister, who wouldn't even meet my gaze. Jason gave her hand a squeeze, then looked at me as if to prepare me for bad news. Dad cleared his throat. Her business went under 3 months ago. She owes the bank a lot of money. They've already taken her house. I swallowed hard, caught between two emotions. On one hand, I felt genuine sadness. Losing your home is brutal, but beneath that, there was a sharp sting of vindication. I had warned her. I had warned all of them. But I kept those words locked in my chest. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But what does that have to do with me? Mom's tears fell faster now. That's not all. Even after losing the house, Emily still owes a lot. To very dangerous people. Emily finally lifted her head, her voice breaking. 150,000. I froze. Who the hell do you owe 150 grand to? Jason answered for her, his tone low. Private investors. The kind who don't care about paperwork. They've been calling, showing up, making threats. They know where we live. They know our routines. We're scared, Chloe. For the first time, my heart tugged with sympathy. Fear was written all over Emily's face, but I still didn't understand why I was standing there. That's awful, I said slowly, but I still don't see what this has to do with me. That's when Mom delivered the blow. We know you bought a house. A nice one. We think you should sell it and use the money to help Emily pay off these debts. The words hit me like a slap. I stared at her, incredulous. Are you out of your damn mind? You're young, Mom insisted. You can buy another house. You'll recover. But Emily and Jason, if they don't pay this money, they could be seriously hurt. I looked around the room at all of them. My parents, my sister, her husband. Let me get this straight. You cut me out of this family 5 years ago because I wouldn't hand Emily my savings. Now her business has crashed and burned, she's neck deep in shady debt, and you want me to sell the house I worked my ass off for? To bail her out? Dad leaned forward, his voice firm. Family helps family. I let out a laugh, but it was bitter and hollow. Funny, you told me I wasn't family anymore. Remember? You kicked me out. You erased me. Emily broke down again, her shoulders shaking. I know we messed up before, but this is different. These people, they're not just going to take us to court, they're going to hurt us. Her sobs echoed through the room, but I stood there, my resolve hardening like stone. Then, maybe you should have thought about that before you borrowed money from loan sharks, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Jason's face flushed. He leaned forward, eyes burning. You have no idea what kind of pressure we're under. You're right, I said calmly, though my hands were trembling. I don't. But I do know I saw 2 very expensive cars in the driveway. Maybe you should start there. Emily snapped instantly, her voice rising. We need those cars for work. I almost laughed at the absurdity. You need them more than you need to keep your lives safe from so-called dangerous creditors? That's rich. That's when Mom shot up from the couch, storming toward me until she was inches from my face. Her eyes were wild, desperate. This house you bought, she hissed, if you sold it, you could wipe out Emily's debts and still have enough left over for a nice apartment. A nice apartment. That line pushed me over the edge. Are you kidding me, Mom? I worked my ass off for that house. I saved every single penny for years. I went without so many things just to make it happen. I'm not selling it to clean up Emily's mess. She's your sister, Dad barked. She's also a grown woman, I shot back, who made her own choices. Bad choices. Emily jumped up, tears streaking her face, her voice shaking with fury. You're supposed to help me. You're supposed to care about what happens to me. I spun toward her, my chest pounding. And where was all this so-called family loyalty 5 years ago, when you all told me to get lost? Where was the love then? That was different. Mom shouted. How exactly? I demanded. You didn't want to help me keep my money then. Well, I don't want to help you with your money problems now. The room went dead quiet, the only sound was Emily sobbing. All 3 of them stared at me like I was the villain, like I was the one betraying them. I'm not doing this, I finally said, my voice steady. Emily got herself into this, and she can get herself out. If you want her debt cleared so badly, then sell your house and give her the money. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I'd just slapped her. This is the only house we have. We're old, Chloe. We can't just start over like you can. Then I guess you understand exactly how I feel about mine. I turned and started walking toward the door. You're making a huge mistake. Emily cried after me. These people don't mess around. I stopped in the doorway, turned back just long enough to meet her eyes. Neither do I. And then I left. By the time I got home, my decision was made. I blocked Mom's email address. I wasn't going to be dragged back into their chaos. For about a week, the silence was blissful. No phone calls, no emails, no surprise visits. I actually thought they'd finally gotten the message I wasn't their family ATM. Mason called me every evening, checking in. I told him everything, every ugly detail. He was endlessly supportive, reminding me over and over, you did the right thing. They don't get to show up after 5 years and demand you fix their mess. And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. Yes, I felt a pang of sympathy for Emily. $150,000 in debt isn't a small mistake. But it wasn't mine to fix. I had my own life to live, my own happiness to protect. Then, Tuesday morning came. I was in the kitchen making coffee, enjoying the smell filling the air, when I heard the slam of a car door outside. Curious, I peeked out the window and nearly dropped my mug. Mom and Dad were walking straight up my driveway. My heart hammered. How the hell did they find me? I yanked open the front door before they could knock. What are you doing here? How did you even get my address? Mom smiled, looking disturbingly proud of herself. Emily hired a private investigator. We needed to talk to you face to face since you blocked my email. A private investigator. My jaw dropped. Are you serious right now? Dad wasn't even listening. He was looking around at my front porch, the siding, the landscaping, his eyes narrowing like a man calculating every dollar sign. I could practically see the numbers turning in his head, figuring out how much my home was worth like it was already his. This is a nice place, Dad muttered, scanning the entryway like a man assessing property value. Get off my property, I snapped. But before I could even process what was happening, Mom shoved past me like she owned the place. Dad trailed right behind her. I stood frozen for a second, stunned by the sheer audacity. Don't make yourselves comfortable, I said sharply. You're not staying. Mom ignored me. She drifted through my living room, fingers grazing the shelves, the couch cushions, even the framed photos on the wall. If you sold this house, she said, voice almost dreamy, you could pay off Emily's debt and still have plenty left over for a smaller place. Maybe a nice apartment. I clenched my fists. I already told you, I'm not selling my house. Dad spread his arms wide, gesturing around the space. But look at all this room, it's just you here. You don't need all this. What I need is none of your business, I shot back. Mom turned toward me, her eyes brimming with tears again. Emily is terrified, Chloe. Yesterday, those men called her, they know where she and Jason are staying. They said if the money isn't paid by the end of the month, something bad is going to happen. Then maybe she should go to the police, I said flatly. Dad shook his head. The police can't help with this. These aren't the kind of people who care about restraining orders. My frustration boiled over. That's still not my problem. You both need to leave. Now. We're not leaving, Mom snapped, folding her arms, not until you agree to help your sister. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Then I'm calling the police. Dad lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Don't be ridiculous. Let go of me, I barked, yanking free. I'm calling them right now if you don't get out of my house. They froze, they knew I wasn't bluffing. Mom's tears spilled faster as she sobbed, fine, but this isn't over. If something happens to Emily, it'll be on your head. I glared at her. And if I lose everything bailing her out of her own bad decisions, that's on mine. At least this way, the person who made the mess deals with the consequences. Dad jabbed his finger toward me, his face dark with anger. You're going to regret this. Family is supposed to stick together. I stepped closer, meeting his glare head-on. Funny, you didn't think that 5 years ago. Finally, they turned and left, but not before Dad muttered some vague threat about consequences for abandoning family. The moment the door shut, I locked it and leaned against it, my chest heaving, my hands shook as I dialed a familiar number. "Hey, it's Chloe," I said when the realtor answered. "Remember when we talked about putting my house on the market? I need to sell fast. I'm willing to take a 5% discount if it helps move things along." He paused. "Interesting timing. I've got a buyer who's been looking in your neighborhood. With that kind of discount, I think he'd be very interested. Let me make a few calls." 3 days later, he rang me back with an offer. Lower than I'd hoped, but fair for a quick sale. I didn't hesitate, I accepted. When I told Mason, he looked shocked. "You're really selling it?" I nodded. "I don't trust them, Mason. They found my address, once they'll do it again. I think they'll keep harassing me, maybe even try something worse. I'd rather sell the house, put the money somewhere safe, and start fresh with you." He was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "That's probably the smartest move. And hey, this just means you can come live with me sooner than we planned." For the first time in days, I actually smiled back. "You wouldn't mind me staying at your place while I look for something new in your area?" "Are you kidding?" he said, pulling me into his arms. "I've been hoping you'd move here." And just like that, for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: hope. "This just speeds up the timeline," Mason said with a grin. He was right. The closing happened in a blur. Within a week, the paperwork was signed, the keys handed over, and my house, my first real home, was officially gone. Mason drove out to help me pack. Together we boxed up my life, the bookshelves I built myself, the office desk where I'd spent countless hours coding, even the old coffee maker I'd nearly worn out. Having him by my side made the whole process bearable. As we lifted the last box into the moving truck, I paused on the driveway. The house stood behind me, quiet and still, the place where I'd built independence after years of family chaos. I had worked hard for it, but surprisingly, I didn't feel regret. I felt relief. My parents could no longer dangle this house over me or use it as leverage. I was done with their games. Mason wrapped his arm around me. "You okay?" I took a deep breath. "Yeah, I'm good, let's go." We drove away together, and for the first time in years, a massive weight slid off my shoulders. Whatever mess Emily had gotten herself into, it wasn't my mess. Not anymore. Life with Mason was everything I didn't know I needed. His home was cozy, filled with warmth and laughter. Working remotely meant I could set up my computer in his spare bedroom and slide right into a routine. We cooked dinner together, went for evening walks, and spent hours scrolling through real estate listings, planning a future of our own. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy, untangled from all the drama I'd carried for so long. Then came that Tuesday morning. My phone rang while I was sipping coffee at Mason's kitchen table. The number flashing on the screen had my old hometown's area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Chloe Morrison?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Who's calling?" "This is Officer Martinez with the Riverside Police Department. I'm calling about an incident involving your parents, Robert and Linda Morrison." My blood went cold. "What kind of incident?" "They were arrested last night for breaking and entering, along with destruction of property. The homeowner intends to press charges." I froze. "Breaking and entering, where?" "The address is listed as 847 Maple Street. Did you used to own that house?" My stomach dropped. "Yes. But I sold it a month ago. What were they even doing there?" "That's what we're trying to determine. They caused significant damage, busted furniture, broken windows, spray-painted walls. The homeowner came home to find them smashing his coffee table with a baseball bat." I nearly dropped my mug. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. Damages are estimated at $40,000. Your parents told us they thought it was still your house, and that you'd wronged them somehow. They said they were getting back at you." I collapsed onto Mason's couch, my legs weak. "Officer, I need to tell you something." And so I did. I told him everything about Emily's debt, about the pressure, about my parents showing up at my home uninvited, threatening me, demanding I sacrifice my life for Emily's mistakes. Officer Martinez listened quietly, jotting notes. So they didn't know you'd sold the house, he confirmed. Obviously not. They probably thought they were destroying my property as revenge. He sighed. Unfortunately, they destroyed someone else's instead. The new owner was understandably furious. He wasn't just filing insurance claims, he wanted my parents prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And honestly, I didn't blame him one bit. When I hung up with Officer Martinez, I told Mason everything. His eyes widened, his jaw tightening with disbelief. That's insane, Chloe. They could have been shot. What if the homeowner had been armed? The thought chilled me. I hadn't even considered it. My parents could have been killed over this ridiculous vendetta, all because they wanted to punish me for not handing them my life savings. Over the next few weeks, I got updates through the police and through mutual friends back home. Mom and Dad were facing serious charges, but their lawyer managed to negotiate a plea deal. They admitted guilt in exchange for no jail time, but they were ordered to pay full restitution, $40,000 for the damage, plus legal fees and court costs. By the end, it was close to 60 grand total. I didn't think they had that kind of money. And I was right. One afternoon, my friend Amanda called me, her voice low, like she was telling me a secret. Chloe, your parents had to sell their house. They couldn't cover the restitution any other way. They sold the one thing they swore they'd never let go of. The house they said they were too old to replace. I sat there in silence, processing her words. And here's the kicker, Amanda continued. After they paid what they owed, they gave the rest of the money to Emily. To help with her debt problems. I nearly dropped the phone. My parents had ended up doing exactly what they wanted me to do, but with their own house instead of mine. But the story didn't stop there. Amanda went on. Oh, and those dangerous people Emily claimed she owed? Turns out, they weren't loan sharks. They were a legitimate investment firm threatening legal action. A lawsuit, not broken bones. She lied about being in physical danger to scare everyone and put pressure on you. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Emily had manipulated everyone, even our parents, into thinking her life was on the line. In reality, she was just facing financial consequences like any other adult who makes bad business choices. Where are Mom and Dad now? I finally asked. Amanda sighed. They're renting a small apartment with Emily and Jason. All four of them crammed into a 2-bedroom place. And it's not going well. Lots of fighting. I should have felt vindicated. And in some ways, I did, but if I'm honest, I also felt a flicker of pity. They'd lost everything, and it was all for nothing. Not enough pity to reach out, though. Not after everything they'd done. Months passed, and through the grapevine, I kept hearing whispers that my family wanted to reconnect. They wanted to explain themselves, to apologize, to rebuild what they had burned down. Every time someone brought it up, I said the same thing, number. Amanda called one last time, relaying another message from my mom. She asked me to tell you, she's sorry. She said they realize they handled everything wrong. I shook my head, my heart like stone. It's too late for sorry. They spent 5 years pretending I didn't exist. Then they demanded I bankrupt myself for Emily. Then they stalked me, threatened me, and committed crimes because I wouldn't bend to them. I'm done. Amanda hesitated. But they're your family, Chloe. I didn't even flinch. Number family doesn't abandon you for 5 years and then show up demanding money. Family doesn't hire private investigators to track you down. Family doesn't break into homes with baseball bats. Whatever they are, they're not my family. When I hung up, Mason was sitting beside me, listening to every word. He reached over, took my hand in his, and asked softly, "You okay?" I smiled for the first time that day. Actually, I'm perfect. We found a house we both love, work's going great, and I don't have to deal with their drama anymore. Mason's lips curled into a grin. Speaking of the house we love, I was thinking of something bigger than an offer. He got down on one knee right there in his living room, pulling out a small velvet box. My breath caught as he opened it. "Chloe," he said, his voice steady, "will you marry me? Let's buy that house together and start our real life." Tears welled in my eyes, happy tears, the kind I hadn't shed in years. Yes. Absolutely yes. We got engaged that day, and by the weekend, we'd already put in an offer on the house. To our joy, it was accepted. We're planning to get married next year, and for the first time in a long time, the future feels bright. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, cutting my parents and sister out of my life completely. But then I think about the peace I've gained. The quiet mornings, the safety, the freedom to build a life without manipulation or guilt hanging over my head. Emily made her choices. My parents chose to enable her, chose to harass me, chose crime over accountability. But I chose differently. I chose Mason. I chose financial security. I chose my peace of mind. And standing here today, engaged, happy, and free, I know I chose better. So no, I don't regret cutting them off, not for a single second. Life teaches us that boundaries are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of self-respect. Chloe's journey is a reminder that even when the people we love most demand more than we can give, we must protect the life we've worked so hard to build. Too often, family ties are used as leverage to guilt us into sacrificing our peace, our savings, or even our futures. But real love doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't require you to abandon your hard-earned stability for someone else's reckless choices. For those of us in midlife, this lesson is especially relevant. By now, many of us have carried both the weight of responsibility and the sting of betrayal. We've saved for homes, retirement, or simply a more secure tomorrow, only to find others expect us to hand it over without question. Chloe shows us that saying no is not selfish, it's survival. She chose her health, her future, and her happiness, even when it meant walking away from her parents and sister. The takeaway is simple: your peace of mind is worth protecting. Don't let guilt or manipulation strip away what you've built. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stand firm and choose yourself.